rolling.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'll take on my presenter voice and start. Quick introduction, I suppose, to say I'm not sure if everyone knows, but I'm a PhD student in Gothenburg at Chalmers University, where I'm researching computer graphics at the engineering department, so it's not very theoretical, it's pretty much down to earth type of research. Seriously fine. And before, a few years ago, I used to work in the heyday of the Brisbane game industry. I was here, I saw it, it was very doesn't seem to be here anymore now. Anyway, so this talk, advanced deferred shading, which I won't jump into quite yet. I want to say this first, and that is, if you have any questions, whatever, just we take it along the way. Don't save them to last, because it's good if I get interrupted, otherwise I'll just carry on and I'm not, it's more fun for me to talk. So do it. Right, the talk, Advanced Deferred Shading, is the name I whipped up in a few seconds to try to cover what it is about. But it's mostly going to be the interesting part, in my opinion, is about tile shading, which we'll get to. But first, I'll start with this outline of the talk, which will appear when I click the button. I'll give an overview of GPUs, which is one slide, so I'm just going to bore people with details there. And then I'll try to quite quickly go through shading, since I don't really know, just so we know what we're talking about. I expect most of the people, or everyone, to actually know what we mean by shading, but it's good to know to just lay down the details. And then I'll talk about what I call forward shading, which is traditional shading in the graphics pipeline, where you shade fragments as they come through. And I'll probably basically cover that whole section. And then we get into deferred shading, which I'll go through that quickly. So, and finally that brings us to the tile deferred shading and tile shading, which is where it gets interesting. So it doesn't sound so good the way I presented it here, but let's see what happens. And more, I don't know what that is. I put that in the sound at some point, but I'm not sure anymore. Right. Oh good, I've kept my notes here, I see, from my licensed presentation. There's nothing to do with this. Alright, GPUs then. For this talk, the interesting part about GPUs is that bandwidth is not keeping up with compute power. That's sort of my basic bottom line, interesting detail. So GPUs keep, basically every time NVIDIA rolls out a new generation with a new process node, so when they travel to large nanometers, every time they do that, they generally double compute power in that step. And these are basically the ones that we still hear more or less. Bandwidth, however, doesn't increase at that rate, so it continually keeps falling behind. So this is the ratio of number of floating point operations per byte of memory fetched. So it just shows you the balance between memory. It gives you an idea, a typical thing to do in games is lots of texture lookups to create effects. Well, this clear trend shows it's becoming an increasingly bad idea. And I also added PlayStation and Xbox here, just to show that they are already quite highly biased towards computation, away from using memory for algorithms. And this is just days ago, so the interesting here is that in the last generation of NVIDIA GPUs, they doubled the compute power, but the bandwidth is exactly the same. So it's just in one smooth leaps double. So clearly, going forwards, it's going to be more and more true, and I think it's reasonable to expect for next generation consoles as well. Because memory bandwidth is expensive to put on the chip. You have to put lots of heads on your things, and they dissipate a lot of heat and use energy. I was going to put a figure in here, but I couldn't find it again. But I think it was somewhere on the order of like 30 watts or something for a DRAM and something like that. So that kind of adds up, so you can see what you want to So yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't scale with the die shrink. In fact, it's harder to put memory pins on. When you scale down the chip, it actually gets harder to fit the DRAM interfaces on physically because you have less space to put your pins. So it's pretty certain to continue that way. So the conclusion is that clever algorithms wins, and with the caveat of eventually, because they will confirm things straight away. So what it does tell us is that if you have a choice in the balance, if you have an algorithm that's slightly slower but is definitely compute limited, you still want to go with that because it means you can keep it for longer in the future. And that was the GPU slide. Which brings us to shading. So shading is that in this context is we want to compute the color. Basically has a certain point, a sample point, which is usually a fragment today, the sample point we want to compute shading for, and set on that device over there, do it per pixel, I don't know. When you do shading on a handle device, you do it on vertex basis. But on the high-end side, you do everything per pixel.
Still, it's still possible.
Sorry?
They can do it. So,
It depends. Right. Well, the tessellation on the tech for
yeah.
sometimes you see wireframe and sometimes.
So like that, when it crosses that boundary, there's no rotation pixels. Yeah, everything on this is still by vertex, doesn't have different point, but it's a lot.
Yeah. So, but on the high side of things, generally it's per pixel because it is nice and more important than that something. So, a fragment is a pixel size chunk of geometry on its way through the pipeline. And so, for diffuse light computation, we need the direction to the light, normal, and some color material. I'm just going through this, we have riddles what it is we need later. Specular, then we also need the direction to the eye and some more material properties, shininess, specular color, but something like that anyway. Alright, fragment shader example. So here's a very simple fragment shader. You can only do one light, and it has a color and position. Then we have the material attributes of it. And these are all things that need to be set for this shader when you bind it or before you bind it perhaps. So it will then be used for geometry after. And then you have the geometry down to the constant vertex shader. And you produce some fine colors. So quite just a trivial example of shading. You work out the light direction, the diffuse light contribution, work out the direction to the viewer. Here is the half-angle formulation. And then you compute the spectral contribution, something like this. It's all simplified as well, because you need to work with routing and stuff in reality. And finally, output a color. Right, done. And if you would want more lights, you upload more lights when you bind the shader before you submit the object, iterate. So, and this is the traditional forward shading approach. I call forward shading. I'm not sure it's an accepted term.
Yeah, that's what it's called forward shading.
Yeah, works very well. Yeah, right. So you could do multi-pass as well, but that's kind of crazy.
Well, that's what the Unreal Engine does. It does
Yes.
pass for each one.
Sorry.
Unreal Engine does it pass for each one.
Used to.
Oh, well, not enough.
That's when they could do it.
It's sort of either geometry is way too expensive to multi-pass these days. Generally speaking, of course. It's always a different possibility to find So I'm claiming here that it's possibly still the most common in real-time applications. Just taking slightly broader, I'm not really sure. It's certainly shifting for games and more deferred shading.
Yeah, the balance of it is definitely one of the first shading right now.
Yeah, the higher games.
All the console games, yeah, 50% or so, at least.
But then, I mean, there's a lot of games that are high games. So if you don't have a lot of lights, then
Well, I think the standard UDK now is deferred.
yeah.
If you're just doing a low-end one but using Unreal, you get a deferred.
Mhm.
No, I think it's enough for lots of people. It's the first one, not unusual.
Yeah, it's shifting that way anyhow. Which is notable in the way that we sort of, it's less and less transparent things in the game. They just sort of go opaque suddenly. Right, so good stuff about that. I think we talked about it a bit in general here. So in general geometry, so we're rendering this green slab of background, generates fragments. Here's one fragment that's not really easy to see. Obviously it's not a fragment, but it's a fragment in our discussion. And then you do the shading for the fragment and merge it in the frame buffer. And this one would need 3 lights uploaded before then these 3 lights are here. And then we merge it in the frame buffer to form the pixel, save it, keeping the nearest. And that's all there is to it. And so the problems here is, one of the problems with overshading, and especially in the context of linear lights, is that we get overdraw. So now we draw the blue polygon and it just replaces what was already all the work that we just did to find the shade. It's a bit fragile, but that happens again. And so on. So this can be really, really expensive for many lights, especially or expensive shading in general. So what you really, really want to do is only shade the one you know is visible, but you only know that when you've drawn everything.
You can depth pre-pass.
Or you do a depth pre-pass, that's possible too. But it's not exact, so it's still just a shading.
Mining software also can have stuff like Red Dream 3 and stuff, use the depth pre-pass and then let that.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, the thing with depth pre-pass is that you'll get the pixel rejected possibly before the pixel shader. But that will generally just mean that you empty slot in the pixel shader.
But it's got a hierarchical set buffer stuff.
Right, so the hierarchical set buffer, it can reject beforehand,
Yeah.
wholesale,
Yeah.
so it doesn't get any work done. But that's not exact. That's the hierarchical nature
Yeah,
of it.
obviously, yeah.
So therefore, you know,
On the edge, you'll have some double shading and stuff on the aspects.
so you will still get double shading.
Yeah, you can still get some, nowhere near as much.
No. But then you're loaded with another geometry class, which might just kill the whole thing. But yes, definitely. And then the other problem is which lights do we need to use. So here we have a simple scene, and over here, most of the lights don't affect this part over here, so technically we would need to upload the lights, all 3 lights, to shade this part of the triangle. So, and what you usually do in forward rendering pipeline is you have some kind of object concept or chunk, and you try to find the relevant lights for that set of geometry. And this, I will usually talk about later because it doesn't appear right. And then there's shader management, so you need to support multiple combinations of lights and surface type permutations. It all gets a bit hairy, and we'll have a closer look at the overdraw. So here is just a screenshot from the demo I've done for the paper, which is sort of the last part is based on, which you can download from the homepage. And I just took a visualized overdraw and took a screenshot. So this is all that's bright over here. In fact, most of everything I think actually is a little bit brighter. It's drawn more than once and then reshaded. So, and then I haven't taken any particular care to sort anything. But generally you don't, because
We often can't put underneath very good the big chunks, so you can't do a perfect depth on anyway.
No, and the breaking into chunks is a problem in itself because you want to submit it in big chunks. To sort it, you have to have smaller chunks. It's a conflict here. And to go through the light design into more detail, you might have 1,000 objects, and then if you want to scale up the number of lights, you can see this starts becoming slightly tricksy to manage. But I think it's a more fundamental problem than that, because we want as few lights as possible for each chunk of geometry. So we want small chunks of geometry, right? So they won't hit 6 or 1 lights. But on the other side of the fence, we want quick drawings, so we want big batches, so the GPU, which is massively parallel, can have something to do. If you submit in tiny batches, you will just feed basically one part of the GPU. And you have lots of API overhead. So yeah, that's just can't do it. The best you can do is try to find something that's least harmful in both departments, and well, it's not very satisfying. First of all, it's boring. It's going to change with every new hardware you can possibly think of. Software combination probably changes when you change the shaders, even this balance, which is the example I used last time I talked about this is we had this problem on the last game I worked on before I went to do my PhD, and it's a car racing game. Along the racetrack you have these nice rails that go wobbly like that, steel rails that stop the car from going too far. And it goes basically around the whole thing. But that wants to split that as one batch because there's not that many polygons in it. But since it goes along the whole bloody track, it will touch every single light in the sea. So you're only going to see a short section of it, but it's going to need every light in the sea uploaded because you understand what it is. So we have to go and hack it out, but we wouldn't really want to. I optimally want to keep it together. One extreme. Correct. So the good things about forward shading is that it's single pass. You don't have any storage overhead to speak of because you only need a frame buffer. And it's great if you only have a few lights, perhaps globally, or if there are global lights, then you can't really do much better anyway. And it's very nice because multi-sample anti-aliasing just works because you do the shading in the right place in the pipeline. And the problems then is the overdraw light management, shade management, the batching, the coupling of the lights management. So what do people do? Deferred shading is the solution that they brought forth here. So the key idea is that you defer the light computations. You separate lighting from geometry measurement completely, and you then do the light handling later. So first you do a geometry pass, then you sample your geometry exactly as normal as usual. You're perhaps right. And then you just populate your G buffers, geometry buffers, with geometry instead of doing any further shading. So you store the normal color, usually not the position. And then you do a shading pass later, and then you can also treat lights as geometry basically, smoothing them. And it can look something like this. So you need multiple render targets. One contains the albedo or diffuse color, diffuse reflectance. One source of normal. You don't need to actually store the position these days because you need to reconstruct the depth buffer.
So the normal stored as red, green, and blue values. That's why it looks so colourful.
Yes. And it's induced by circuits. It's straightforward.
So blue is said, I guess, in that one. It's the stuff coming straight towards you. There is blue normal.
Blue. Right. So there is few spaces usually have it doesn't actually work. And the specular reflectance is included in that. Great. So producing the G buffers requires a fragment shader which looks like this. And it's fairly similar up until here. As before, it's the same, but the lighting information is gone because we are doing it. Instead, we're instead of a single color target output these things that we are talking about. And you basically just copy them out. I think that's it. Okay, and then you just draw the light bounds as geometry. And let's see if they line up to that exactly so what I mean by that is that you start by taking from Williams' fairly obvious departure of physics and say that light of a finite range, because otherwise you can't do it. It's just future research all over. Yeah. And so you submit a stack of polygons for the bounding volume of the light. For each fragment produced by these, you read the G buffers and compute the shading and write the color, resulting color back to the frame buffer, or actually just write the resulting light contribution to the frame buffer with additive blends. And then you just repeat this for more lights. I think you can make out the bounding volumes and more lights and more lights. And so that was pretty crazy, but it's just because the bounding volumes are shown on top of it. Just a few hundred lights. Anyhow, the obvious thing is that handling light management is not similar to the code let the frame buffer do this kind of interaction with which part of the geometry, so you don't have that. So the shader looks something like this. And since each just deals with one light, you don't have any complex shader either. You just draw one volume per light, so it has the light perfectly down. And then you fix the buffer for the target down position. Use the handling this guy. Do the shading, whatever it is, and write the result back. And that's deferred shading for it. So the good thing is this, that it enables trivially many lights, because you just keep going until you do a light of the amount of time, I suppose, how much time you have to use to draw your frame. But light management is very well, you could count them against the differential, but it's basically what you have to do. As simple as that. Shaders are also much simpler because you're separating the lights, so you don't have any combination effect there. Bad things, difficult to say the least to support transparency. There are these techniques, but I don't know that they're being used. I think most people just don't have transparency in games these days. Yeah, or they draw it last, but with a very limited set of possible shadings. Sorry?
Extended for not a lot of them.
Yeah, right. So keep them away. So that's a problem because, well, it's not a problem in games in the sense that you have control over the environment. You just tell your artist that no, we don't have any transparency. And then why? You didn't tell them we don't.
I'd say the disadvantage of deferred is you have like one fixed lighting scheme for the entire world as well. You don't have like different material properties.
Right.
Differently with different lights.
Yeah, so that's a problem, and it's a good thing that you bring it up, because I guess since I don't actually tackle that in my research, that property control, I tend to avoid it, but it's actually a good question anyway, because if you do need to stuff more attributes in there, you aggravate the big memory bandwidth issue.
One technique something we use is to have a material lockup texture. And have all the material properties that they have just a more complex material class and have lots of material properties. So you just use the one channel, so that channel just stores an index to that material that you're going to do. So when you're blending the material in, you can look up and do all the different spectral properties and things of that material.
Yeah, it's not particularly the material thing, it's during the lighting phase, like just say you got some material that you want to use foam lighting on and some of it you want to use torrents on. That's like a
yeah, you can do
like a very different
shaders.
Yeah, I know you can have switches and shaders and stuff, but it starts getting more complicated.
Definitely more complicated.
But the fundamental problem is that you need to have enough space in the G buffers for the biggest combination, like the biggest shader. So whatever data is streamed from the fragment shader stage to the deferred stage, you need to be able to pass through the G buffer. And you need to have space above one, regardless if that's just one object that shows up one every 1,000 frame. You still have to have that big G buffer. So you have to provide that space.
And you've got a set number of channels of information you can put in. If one of those channels is an index to a lookup table, then you can provide a lot of information.
Right, but if you want information per pixel, some parameter that varies per pixel.
Yeah, per pixel you have different index value. That's one of the channels.
Yeah, but if you want to have it smoothly vary, I mean, this is what we thought.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be smooth. I suppose you could interpolate this stuff.
But then you're starting to just create a general compression scheme in index compression of some value.
Basically, it's a palette.
Yeah.
It's a palette. One of your channels is a palette.
So anyway, in general, the problem is as stated. You have to, if you want another one, you have to add another channel. Make bigger indexes to your table and so on and so forth. So you have to pack all the information.
We're using it. Yeah. First thing you hit is these run out channels. You go, okay, what are we going to drop? We're going to have coloured specular, or first thing the artist loses their coloured specular generally.
So
most ones don't just want a specular grey, they want less coloured metallic specular.
So this is a trade-off that I suppose artists don't really like to hear about. They're used to being able to customize one shader. So that's it.
There's another problem as well with deferred shading, which is accuracy. Because presumably you don't accumulate and then set your results at the end. You've got to do it every time you draw a light.
Right, so you have that high precision frame buffer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least 16 bits. I think 16 bits is usually fine. But you run into those things where you forget them.
Per color channel? Yeah.
And the problem is that you also need high precision for if you store the ambient and even possibly for the color buffer, because you might modulate it with the color in the shader, which you do that later, but then you need to store that index. And then you shift the color values, and then you requantize them down to 256, and it won't come out the same as you have done the multiplication and then the shader. So, but especially for if you store the ambient, which is typically very low, you just quantize down, you just use a couple of bits. That makes sense? Like if you, because you have the result text, or you're going to accumulate the results, so it's convenient to just chuck the ambient in there in the first pass. Yeah. And that will also get quantized if you don't use a high precision. The ambient is just 0.05 times an 8 bits RGB value becomes just the last bit can be on or off. Quite horrible. Anyway, I suppose the option is the same. You still need a bigger, higher precision framework. But so the biggest issue really for speed at least is the memory bandwidth. As I did show you that it's not keeping up with that. We use a lot. So, yeah. No, I'll not cover them.
Okay.
I can try to recap that quickly when we talked a bit more about white and deferred shading is going to making that irrelevant. But I'm aware of the, but I guess I can say that fundamentally the light pre-pass has exactly the same characteristic as deferred shading. It's just a constant factor, less bandwidth. So it's the same algorithm.
Yeah, I know it's the same.
It's got the same problem with bandwidth, it's just pointing at you. But we could definitely do that. So tile deferred shading has as the key goal to solve the bandwidth issue once and for all, which I think sounds pretty good. And what we want to do ideally is read the G buffers once, not many times. And I realize my slides haven't really shown exactly why many times, but I'll talk about it in a second. So what happens in deferred shading, the bandwidth problem then is that we get this new type of overdraw, which is light overdraw. We solve the geometry overdraw problem by doing shading last, but instead we brought in light overdraw, which is many lights overlap the same pixel. So if we have one pixel which n lights overlap, then we will be reading the G buffers n times, and these are high precision, uncompressed textures. And it's somewhere along here that I decided on that spacing game to not go with deferred shading, comparing the specs of the Xbox 360 with the and then bars all lined up at the start. Worst case, immediately. So at least easy. So the inner loop we can describe this way. So for each light which we draw, each of the pixels covered will read the G buffer, compute the shading, and write the results of the frame buffer. That's the basic structure. This inner loop is over the pixels. You need to launch the pixel data every time. Now, what we really like is to change the inner loop so it's over the lights instead. Because in that case we can read the pixel data once, but we're not moving over the pixels. And then loop over all the lights, accumulate the result in register, nice and high precision, and write it at once at the very end. So there's the comparison between the deferred shading. Oops. And the only problem really with that idea is that we need access to all the lights in a sequential manner for a certain pixel. Creating that list isn't easy in the first place. And if we went ahead and did it for every pixel on the screen, we would be doing what amounts to much more work probably, and then just doing the shading straight away. So that's not going to help us. So instead, and we also require a lot of memory to store these lists for every pixel. So instead we just divide the screen up into tiles of say 32 by 32 pixels. Keep one list for each tile instead. And as you can see then we will immediately reduce the amount of storage and work to find these lists by 3 orders of magnitude. Which means that it becomes insignificant generally. And it's also good because then if it's tiles you have pixels, neighboring pixels in post shading possible use the same light, so you get nice coherence in access to the access the same light together. It's very good for bandwidth, etc. Because normally content better, for example. Right, so that's tile deferred shading really. And what you do is you render the lights soon to the G buffers as normal. Then you build a grid for the lights somehow, where you bin the lights according to which screen space region the overlap. And then you do a full screen pass and shade all the samples that you can currently like. And in the full screen pass you have exactly this structure. For each pixel you get the G buffer data once, look up your tile, and look over the lights and accumulate the shading. And then you write the shading out. So already I think it's pretty obvious that the bandwidth problem is gone, because we only read the G buffer data once, at most once for every pixel on the screen. And that ties back in with the question of more attributes. So if you solve the bandwidth issue, it's not such a big sacrifice to go out and stick in an attribute in your G buffer. It's sort of okay. Then, of course, on the console you have to fit into limited memory, but, you know...
Is it a problem that your pixel shader has got to store this set of buckets, like grid of 20 buckets?
No, it's a feature, in fact. It's good, because everyone uses the same grid, all the pixels, right? You look up your tile in the grid, but the grid is a fairly small structure. It's only maybe 60 by 30 for full high definition. So it's a small data structure, and you just store that in constant memory, upload it once per frame, and then just run this shading class. So it's actually quite convenient.
And you will find the Uncharted series, they do their rendering similar to this. They render the screen up for little tiles, store the number of lights per tile, and then on each SPU they fire it off and do that lighting for each tile individually.
Yes, and and they do it for Battlefield 3.
Yeah. It's quite a big.
Yes, quite a few of the high-end titles have managed some form of deferred. And there's been one, basically for the last, since 2008, there's been a talk at every GBC and or SIGGRAPH about tiles deferred shading. So I'm not sure it will continue this year, but because DICE have just finished shipping their game, so they'll be going to conferences this year. Anyway, so that's that, and look something like this. No idea what I'm talking about anymore. This happens. Anyway, so here's a light. It's very hard to see with this contrast, but this is the tiling, and you add to the grid. Here I'm just showing the count, which has a pedagogic purpose, and but you also store an index somehow. And the way I've solved it is that I do it on either the GPU or CPU, and basically do a brute force per tile against all the lights. That's what everyone else has done so far. I think they've done like 2-level hierarchy as well. Like so one even coarser version for the first class.
Sort of broad face and narrow face.
Well, yes, that you do the same, but fewer. So because it's not so to narrow down for the detail.
Yeah, so you do a big grid,
Yes.
a wide grid to start with.
Yeah. And I think, I can't remember who it was, I think it might have been for Need for Speed or Run, they were talking about this, or some other title. But they did, I think, 32 by 16 tiles at the final level, so they're quite small. And then on the higher level, they did 64 by 64 tiles. So put the first bin them into 64 by 64, which cuts down the majority of the lights, and then you do the final ones just a couple of those. So that's just a way to speed it up a bit. But otherwise, brute force for up to say 1,000 light isn't going to hurt you massively. Anyway. And what I've done is I do 2 classes. So first the counting class, and then you work out where your slot is, and then you do the filling in class. And then you just keep going like this. And so just because I'm showing the shading, that's obviously not going to do the shading right now. You're just working at the light. And hopefully I can stop before it's too late. We'll go to the next slide. This one more. Yes. And there we are. And so there's about 11 lights here. And we're already seeing that compared to the per object, I mean, here's just triangles. So we'd have to upload all of the lights, more or less, for that one triangle. Right? But what we're seeing, if you look in the light counts, no tile has more than 3 lights in it. So we're already doing a pretty good job with this trivial example. As compared to forward shading. Right, and now the movie starts, and you can't see it.
Oh, it's corrupted.
Yeah, it looks right, but it's not. These are the
Ah,
tiles.
okay.
Showing the tiles.
Okay, that's the, okay.
In 3D and how they turn out. So they are also bounded by the depth, so you can count the lights efficiently against it. But then some of them do get rather long, as you can see.
So you're keeping the actual viewpoint in the same place and just moving a camera around?
Yeah, so these are the tiles you see from the first view. And that was that. So if you ever get this, they're ready to go. I have another one. Let's start again. Okay. I must have clicked in the wrong place.
So each one of those is a thin frustum, is it?
Yeah, they become frustums. And if you're lucky, they become pretty short frustums, really, like these guys. And then you clean the geometry very well, and you're going to find that they actually would have had the same set of lights anyway, so it's a great optimization. And then you have some unfortunate ones which go off. There's a tower way over there. This is a scene from Unreal Tournament. But you can get it out of the SDK. If you like. So we use that for some profiling of the next paper.
So I lost you over there. There's a tile bridge that you with the lights, is that 2D screen space or 3D?
It is 2D. The grid is 2D.
Yeah.
So I'm starting from if I can. So you see, there's the grid. It's really in 2D, but then the samples also have depth. So you take depth into account the
Does
boundary.
each grid have a min-max distance
Yeah.
sorted as well?
So you reduce the depth buffer to find it because it's deferred. You have access to the depth buffer. So here's the very quick reduction for each tile. Min-max reduction to find the span, and that, otherwise you have to only take all the lights that were along that sort of tube into account for those pixels. But if they are together like they are,
So what stage are you working out those little mini thrusters then? It is a stage that after you've done the rendering, because you've got the depth
Yes.
buffer, but before you do the lighting.
well, so first you do the G buffer rendering, normal. Then you work, basically the next thing you have to do is work out the min and max depth for each tile. So you have that ready when you then build the grid by iterating over the lights.
Is that all done on the GPU as well? Then?
Yes, if you will. You really don't want to shorten too much back and forth.
Yeah.
But I think it varies. I mean, the console implementation do it wherever you have computational resources handy, which isn't anywhere at the moment, so they push it somewhere. So they're pretty creative approach.
Depths of those little frostings, they're based on whatever lights happen to fall into that.
No, so that's based on the pixels that are in the
Like, are they the depth that the light affects, or are they?
So these are the covered depth of the samples in here.
Oh,
So
okay.
here, so here's some from there to there.
Yeah.
Is the range of the pixels.
Yeah,
So it's the
you're
values.
actually drawing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you use that bounding volume. So what you do is you bin the 2D.
So you might have
2D.
10 lights in that 2D, and then you're only picking the ones that hit the frost.
Yeah,
Color
so you do first that, and then you do
But
the
you're
min-max.
going over every pixel in the thing then and then min-maxing it to get a fraction.
Yeah,
It's like the first pass over you got to just build the
you get the
whole thing.
yeah. So that,
Are you doing, that's like Cuda or something?
yeah. But you do the texture pass as well. I mean, just
Oh,
the
if you
rendering
want it to
pass.
render into texture. Right.
No big deal, really.
And then you
It's
can
very
texture
quick.
is the whole thing afterwards.
I haven't implemented that to you for the demo, but if you want to do it, but then it just makes it
Because you want to fill those little tiles with the list of lights that overlap. Can you do that with that too?
without doing.
Yeah, if you're just doing a fragment shader.
Yeah, well,
You could render the texture, but then you'd be limited how many lights you could put in each tile. But you know, say something that technique for that.
well, what I do is I just have the lights. I have new directions. So you have the grid, which is small enough to fit into constant memory, which contains an index and an offset and a count.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a linear texture, buffer texture, whichever suits your architecture, where all the actual light indices.
Line
Light.
just running across.
Yeah, and
Line
just
in the
pick
texture.
a,
So you just have lines down and then reach the tiles and then add as many lights as you want. to.
right, so you can have quite a few lights.
So you have to reserve space for 8 or 16.
Right.
You just reserve a little space for 8 or 16 for each.
No, I put them compactly in the texture, so it's just an integer texture.
That's what that free
Oh, the
pass was.
offset.
So if you do it in two passes, first you count how many will there be, and then you allocate that range. And you can do that in parallel as well with the prefix of it.
Okay.
In the previous library,
You just got an offset to the
counting how many
pixels
it's
starting
going to get.
already.
Yeah, you could.
But you can do it in a number of ways, really. And what I was going to say is that for say up to 1,000 lights, even doing the spinning on the CPU isn't going to hurt you very much.
No, the CPU until you showed me that bit ago, and that's the GPU I would.
Yeah, well,
GPU to computer, yeah, I understand it now.
I've done both, and it's plenty quick for. I mean, it depends on light distributions as well, so it's a little bit hard to generalize. But
What is that? You can do the Z bit on the CPU, obviously.
well,
You don't have access
the
to
problem is you have to get the dead stuff back, and then you start
It's still
splitting
the old
it.
500.
Right, so you only need all sort of pipelining problems, but on the console you can get very quick callbacks and stuff, so it entirely depends.
That seems.
But I think they often do this, I can't remember some implementations have done it with the fragment shade on the Xbox 360 and the depth buffer reduction, but I think they actually did it on the SPUs on the PS3. So
I can't think of any cons to that. Are there any downsides?
there are any downsides. Well, I'm working on a follow-up paper that's going to be submitted in 5 days, which is going to be hard. So yes, fortunately there are problems. I'll show you the video one more time. Well, I try to show it actually here, and if we look over here, see these frustra that hits the edge there. Did you have time to see that? It will pan back there towards the end, or when we go up and down a bit. Here's a nice section, it's good tiles. Here, these tiles, they span from here over all the way to there, because there's a sample way over there. And there's your fundamental problem. If your frame buffer is in here, say you look into a tree or something, you can get any number of lights that are just floating in air between. There's no information, and it's pretty hard to work around with this. And one which everyone has just given a talk on is just failed to mention so far. But hey, on the upside, since you remove the bandwidth bottleneck, it's still plenty better than deferred shading in current hardware and future hardware for the kind of scenes that we're using it. But it does have this unfortunate pathology that can be removed anyway. Well, good. What are we up to now? Deferred light computation. I feel I probably have more slides a bit. So we probably talked all the way through this shader in words, but here's the shader function to actually do the shading for a tile. So from somewhere, usually the G buffer, you provide the position on diffuse reflection, specular, and shininess. And then you just do things you need from that review direction. And then you work out, here's the grid. So you just take the fragment coordinates, and if we imagine this is a full screen plot, just truncate it, that gives you your index into the light grid. Light grid is assumed to be stored in constant memory here. And you look up the count and the offset, and then you just iterate up and fetch the light index. And the lights in turn are probably in constant memory in the compact buffer. And accumulate the shading and returning it. And so, I'm not sure if I'm going to mention it earlier, so I'll just take it here again. That since we do the accumulation of shading in the register, we can have a low precision frame buffer again. Now, having gone to have G buffers around, I'm not sure everyone cares that much anymore. They take up a lot of space, but we can, and it's a feature. There seems to be clicking anywhere in the case. Oh yeah, well there you go. Anyway. I'm not sure what this one is about.
This one to be before that on slide, I think.
Sorry?
This is before the last slide. Yeah. Because it's calculating what you're passing into the computer.
Oh yeah, so it is. Thank you. No notes, I can't remember what I did. Right, so that just shows you for the deferred list. I think I'll cover more details going through. Anyway, let's see what happens. Right, so you load all the attributes from the G buffer, same as for deferred shading. But you only do it once. So this is only run once for each pixel, that's the important thing. And then you compute the shading for the function. And it's nice because basically you're containing your whole lighting setup in one function. It's way over there, but it deals with the lookup and the light list, so it's neatly compartmentalized. It's easy to add and remove. I would say of all possible ways of adding lighting to an engine which doesn't support it, and for many lights actually, perhaps is tile deferred will be the absolutely simplest way to do it, not just the advances and modern lighting. Great. So the good things: low bandwidth, many lights, trivial, simple shader, no overdraw. So same as deferred, I suppose. The bad thing is difficult to support transparency when it's told that the large frame buffers same as deferred there too. But there's actually one other problem which I sometimes seem to have dropped off these slides, and that is that when you do deferred shading, because you're doing one light at a time, you only need, if you're going to do shadows for these lights, which is another thing people don't share about, they can reuse the same shadow color, right? Because you do first one light, then it's free again, and then there's reuse it. With tile deferred, because basically we rewarded the inner loop, you random accessing the lights, so you have to have every shadow mark possible up front. Only upside, when you do thousands of lights, people don't tend to do shadow spotting anyway, so it's sort of not an issue for the comparison in this case. No one generates 1,000 shadow marks. Not that I've heard of any. Waiting for someone to shoot it down. Of course.
Well, I've seen it done academically with murder in a game.
So in research, really.
Yeah.
That's like set of bullets. It's nice actually for once that I've done an algorithm which is for actual real time, not research real
I'm
time.
sure I've seen some Pixar movies with lots of shadow map generation.
What's that?
I'm sure I've seen some Pixar movies with lots of shadow map
They do tend
generation.
to use a lot of shadow. But they do
And
actually
it's
work.
playing back in real time.
Yeah, it does. After a few years of rendering server time.
Oh yeah, there was some pre-processing that once that was done, it played all play back in real time.
Anyway. Okay, and that brings me to a variant that I at least can claim to have invented for once.
Really? I've seen this in the AMD demo.
Sorry,
The AMD Leo demo?
it came out very recently.
Yeah.
I was published before it came out. So that's good hack. And the paper was submitted a year before that.
Okay.
No, because I invented tile deferred shading. That's the annoying thing. And I submitted a paper saying, hey, this is a great idea. Look what I've got. Scarred the net for any kind of previous work. Nothing turns up. Well, the author is onto something, but of course people are going to use it because they already know about it. That was the reviewer answer. And so there was about 10 slides in PowerPoint presentation from game developer conference and SIGGRAPH that I had missed. Maybe 5 slides even. Something. Which isn't really previous work, but then again it is when you're paying attention. Fair enough, I suppose. Tile forward shading, yeah, they did, so it's funny, but they didn't mention it. But,
I think I've actually seen your paper actually for this. Because I remember running across it on a Twitter feed. So I posted a link to the paper. So.
As soon as you were describing it, I was thinking, this sort of work for forward trading as well.
yeah.
You're going to show me it does.
It does work for forward shading. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to show you also that it doesn't really perform very well. But it has some real benefits though, because you don't have G buffers, you don't have to store a lot of things. Basically, I'm skipping the start of this slide already. So you just do the same thing. You create your light grid, and if you know you're not going to have a whole lot of depth in your scene, you can skip you can just do the pure 2D binning and do it entirely on the CPU, which means you can do it on whichever hardware, you don't need any fancy hardware, whatever, you don't get any syncing issues, because you can just do the 2D binning. And then you have to up your larger grid and bind it to some kind of constant, and when your fragment changes are normal. And you call the same shader function that I showed earlier from instead of outputting to GBuff, you just call that function, and it returns you the shading. So you look up the lights in the grid in your traditional part of the fragment shading in the pipeline. Which means that multi-sample anti-aliasing works as well. So, because this is a problem.
Sorry, sort of something else. Doesn't just cause 2 users in lighting sequence?
No,
It uses forward rendering and it bins all the lights in a 3D grid space and uploads that as one texture, and then each fragment just accesses where it is locally in the world. You get the list of lights that it's going to need to render for that.
Okay, I've seen someone do like a 2D projection on a terrain type thing, but it's very limited in where you apply it. It's not full 3D. So like a 2D building that's projected down on the terrain.
Yeah.
Is that maybe what you're thinking of? Yeah. So that's not quite the same, though, because they don't actually. It's a view independent building that you do up front.
Yeah, I think that it's a 3D reading. I think it's a 3D texture that they use for the reading.
All right. Well, I'm interested to see it. But I haven't heard of it before.
Fellow Swedes. So.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I haven't come across it. I haven't looked at how they do it. But please send me a link or something.
I'll learn a link. I know it's in GP Pro.
Or a reference.
Okay.
I'll be able to get the book. So, maybe I didn't invent this either. But as you say, you think about it and I did evaluate it, so that's always my claim to. Yeah. That's why the paper was published in the first place, is that I actually described the algorithms in detail and evaluated them. Which has not been done before, anyway. I'm not sure what I'm going to say about this anymore, but... Alright, see, I have more slides about it, happily. So here the order is not the same, so you don't have a deferred pass first, but you build the light grid up front. If you do a pre-depth pass, you could use this depth value as well for your grid building purposes. And then you render the scene, and in the fragment shader, you use the on-screen location to find the right tile and so on and so forth. And yeah, it works great with full screen and aliasing as you're doing shading in the sort of right place of the pipeline. And you can do transparency as well. That's interesting. And I think that's one of the key benefits of this, which will probably show up in a slide or two. But you can combine it with deferred shading because you're using the same framework, time deferred shading. So you can reuse the grid even, with the time grid. The lightlets that you build with deferred pass that you can do first in your transparent pass that you do later. And it's the same shader function that looks up the light, so it should make code management a lot easier. So implementing support for these nasty little few transparent objects that someone has should be a lot simpler with this combination. Well, this is just showing the forward comparable forward shading. So here the attributes are interpolated from the fragment vertex shader, and then you do the lookup. So you get the overdraw problems back, of course.
Yeah.
Unless you do a pre-depth pass, where you're a little bit of it, and so forth. Double geometry, blah. So it's been a good things. Right.
I think when you say overdraw is back, how really is it back? Sorry, like you're only still doing. Oh yeah, sorry, you're doing multiple forward. Oh yeah, sorry. I always think of depth pre-pass.
Right, if you do depth pre-pass, things are slightly different, but then you're burning two passes. And it really usually is a showstopper.
Yeah.
It sort of nullifies any advantage of whatsoever. Pre-pass. I don't know. I haven't seen many times people actually have any use of it. As you say, it can happen. It depends entirely on the balance between geometry complexity and shading. So it's always in there somewhere. But if you, I tried that too. I think that's when I'll show some results from the paper in a bit. And I think the results for forward alpha is with this pre-pass.
I suppose you could roughly sort things from front to back, and then you still get something there.
Sometimes you have situations where it's practically better.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we started this slide. Well, I'll just clarify that second point. So here, see, what I mean is that when you're rendering, say, a small triangle, for example, I'm not sure if you're aware of the problem that since all GPUs to date has a quad, which is 2 by 2 pixels, that's the fundamental smallest unit that they send down to the shading stages. Along the edges you get empty water source, right? You get pixels that are outside of the triangle, but it has to be there. And the reason they do that is for computing the derivatives for texture filtering and so on. So you always outputs 2 by 2, even if the suffix is triangle, it will still take up 2 by 2 slots in the shading stages. So in the sim units later on, you still have to do it. So they'll run empty, so they'll reduce your efficiency quite quickly if there's more of those. If you do a full screen code, obviously all units will be visible. It's no problem. Just triangle is no problem. But when triangles have edges and you have long bases of lights, you know, this can get quite big bubbles. I imagine this is me really grasping for explanations of the very poor performance we'll see shortly. But it's got to be something like that. Not just overdo it, doesn't explain it. Here is some comparison between the techniques. They're really important. We've basically covered all of this, so it's just a recap. The reviewer wanted it in the papers. The first line really is the one that decides most of the other things. I think that's the way we arranged the image. That's really the key feature. So if we go iterate over pixels or lights, it's how most of the rest of the views are. So tile deferred transparency is simple with an asterisk. Yes, if you combine it with tile forward, it's simple. You don't have to maintain like 2 separate pipelines, because you can reuse the machinery for computing the lighting. Right, let's see if this one starts in. Started. So here are some performance figures from the paper, and we have the 3 techniques here. And the 2 interesting ones is the deferred, the traditional deferred, and the tile deferred. Let's run this a few times. And here is where I'm starting looking through a lot of lights. And tile forward really does quite badly here, for this reason. Because technically tile forward is doing the same amount of work, especially with the pre-depth class, as tile deferred. It's the same number of lights to iterate through per pixel. It's no difference, but it performs horribly bad. And this is from the GTX. There's something go wrong.
No, I mean, it's like, it doesn't, instinctively, it doesn't seem like it should be that bad.
Yeah, no, I can't, I have to explain it.
Well, you should probably have a graph of traditional forward as well to compare it, I suppose.
Well, no, you can't really. There isn't such a thing as traditional forward rendering for 1,000 lights.
Or it'd be a lot, you need to rescale the graph.
Well, it just depends so much on all these factors, like how you define up your geometry, how you assign the lights. You know what I'm saying? There isn't a simple, this is how you do traditional forward shape, or having a lot of lights. It sort of becomes meaningless.
Well, it's the same difference between traditional deferred and tile deferred, isn't it?
Not really, no.
There's a difference between looping over all of them compared to just looping over what's in the bucket.
Well, no, but the implementation, there isn't that many ways you can do them. See what I mean? Like, for a traditional forward pipeline to support a lot of lights, there's any number of ways you can do it. With different trade-offs. So,
if somebody was trying to do it, they would subdivide it, but then depending on how much it's subdivided, it changes all the stats. There's no test you could do that would be proper indicative of that somebody could come up with another system that just changes all the things and still call it traditional forward.
and it also depends on the scene complexity suddenly, which makes it much harder to compare as well.
If you remove some of those lights, it probably look nicer.
If I had someone do lighting, if I had someone do lighting, I probably would really like that.
How many lights per pixel would there be on average?
I can't remember. But quite a lot in some places. It's fairly densely stacked to get 920 or whatever it is.
It would be good to see the tile grid real time.
Yeah,
Showing how
nice.
we do it. I'm just wondering when it peaks up. So that was the form looking through. There was one time it turned around, it seemed to be facing the wall, but it was still super expensive.
Okay.
It seems a little bit odd.
That sounds odd. Maybe it's a mismatch between the two time references because I've often only made.
So you say the shuttle maps are a problem for deferred. What's the current solution for that? Just the fact that you have to have access to all the shuttle maps and you can randomly partner against them.
To not try and shadow 1,000 lights. Just don't do it.
That's the problem.
Find a primary couple of lights and shadow map those.
Yeah. You have like the sunlight.
Yeah, it probably has a little bit of. You have to think about in the middle of platforms, I guess.
So even the second one, really big.
So here it's expensive when we're looking down the wall, the line. Also, there is a few discontinuities that we showed before when we were looking over the heads of the row.
They just appear there.
Yeah,
You
that's
see
just
the-
it's a bit ahead. So.
yeah.
Because that's down here,
Wow.
that's here, and whereas basically no work is being done at all. And then it doesn't really matter which one is faster because you're looking into the wall, you can't see any lights. On the other hand, if you did a traditional forward shading approach, it would probably still be expensive because you should run bending lights everywhere and not which objects are going to be.
Traditional bodies wouldn't have the lights. It'd be
Well,
baked.
just having lights there.
The traditional method is that's all baked, so there's none of my moving, and
Right.
it'll perform really well.
Pixelated a little bit.
Is that using a depth repass?
That is using a depth 3 pass. Because the one without the depth 3 pass is way over there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's like maybe
I deleted those graphs from the presentation for simplicity. It gets noisy. I think they're in the paper. So the expensive part really here is when you're looking down the corridor and there's 1,000 lights stuck on top of each other. And
That's where you get mostly.
if I remember correctly, this is also with the 16-bit per component in the G buffers. And this on the GTX 280. So I'll show you some relative performance against the next generation, where performance roughly doubles for GTX 480, but bandwidth increases by 30%. And the scaling is fairly obvious. And I think that's probably very much the most interesting part of the whole concept. When you say that it's always undercutting the traditional deferred, but then there's always a little bit of room for better implementation.
So the kind of upshot of all this is you should move work away from loading things and into calculating.
Yeah, in general. But then it's a tricky balance. Because you're usually optimizing for that particular platform. Right?
Yeah.
Console side. And then actually, I mean, the one that's sort of when I started my PhD, I went into this with the idea that we should put everything into computation, right? Because then everyone knows that. But it turns out that finding the right balance is really interesting. Because if you are compute bound on a particular, it's more safe for the future. Because for a particular architecture, you're just wasting the bandwidth resource that you could have used, right? It's just idling, but you could have done something with that. So you're missing an opportunity to go a little bit faster. But future-proofing compute bound. But best performance on a particular platform.
Yeah.
Got a balance of that.
Yeah.
Optimization was so much nicer back in the days where if you removed an instruction, it went one instruction quicker. But that was quite a long time ago. Right, so here's the scaling. Start by deferred stencil, so that's the same one that we saw in the movie set with the stencil optimization. It cuts away, it masks light over to identity volumes, so you're actually shading the pixels that are actually.
Sorry, are the figures here milliseconds or frame rate?
Well, it should be milliseconds.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's both.
Because I can't tell by looking at
No,
it.
it's milliseconds all of it. So, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't get faster with the GTX 400. And I can't see it does. So that's roughly 30% increase from 18 to 12 milliseconds. Whereas it's more or less double the performance from time deferred. So it's exactly one of those applications where it turns out that expected based on and then these two, so the G buffers with the color and whatnot, just configure them so I can have them at either 16-bit position or 32-bit position. And that's just to tie back to your question about light prepass, how the scaling we have with respect to how much data we're fetching. So that's the same thing, that's why I didn't look at it, because they are achieving the same difference. Just light prepass, you're just fetching less data, but you're doing it perfectly. So it's the same difference as if you just change the bit depth of your G buffers. You see my point?
Well, sure, yeah, but yeah, you're always fetching less data.
Right, so there's been another data point here, but the difference there isn't any algorithmic difference, it's only slightly less data again, which, as I said, winning one more generation, I don't think.
It's a very popular algorithm, that's all.
It's well,
You're
I'd say it's...
optimizing the overdraw on only the lights, right?
Sorry?
This whole thing is to optimize the overdraw when running the lights.
Well, you can eliminate it bandwidth.
Yeah, it's just for the light path, the actual mixing
Light
light field, which is the same on deferred and big path anyway. That part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's,
those two differ. It's not,
the difference
it's not
is
the actual
that,
rendering the lights and it's how you mix them and stuff.
well, the difference between deferred and light prepass is that you make some simplified assumptions, and therefore you can get by with only storing the normal and the spectral power, whichever it is. So you just have a much thinner G buffer, which is great, but then you have to do some budgeting again for that, like I need to also things like that, which will make it higher. But you do exactly the same, you render each light at a time, so you get the same bandwidth. You get the same curve, it's just going to be, maybe half the bandwidth, but it's still bandwidth limited in the end, because you do relatively computation. But you will be maybe not bandwidth limited on VTX 280, but maybe more than 80. But you definitely are on 680. So since they have the same characteristic, it doesn't really matter. So, and this performs the same kind of comparison, just changing the number of bits in the G buffers.
What's the deferred stencil polymer?
So that's traditional deferred shading with the stencil optimization.
Okay.
And do you know what the stencil optimization is?
I know of the stencil map, I don't know what optimization is.
Right, so what you do when you do a deferred, you draw the light volume, right? And then you need to shade all the samples in there. But if the light is an empty space, you're not actually going to end up contributing anything because the samples are way outside of the light volume. So if you first, if I can remember, you draw the back faces first or front faces first, the back faces. And you muck around, it's basically the same as shadow volumes, right?
Okay.
So by drawing one first and then the other, you get a mask which tells you exactly where it overlaps in your
Oh yes, yeah, gotcha.
And then you only need to shade those.
Yeah.
And that can save a lot of work, especially when there's lots of lights in the line burner. So if I hadn't done that, it would have been massively unfair to...
It's also good for spotlights instead of just point lights. So you've got a big cone of a spotlight and you're not seeing anything through most of it, just when it hits the ground.
Right. Well, yeah, it's that effect. Yeah, so without that, which is up here, it gets massively worse. So I did try that as well because it has, it's simpler, so if there isn't so much... it depends. If you have a scene where all the lights are close to the ground, so most of them will overlap to most, then the stencil class will just waste time, right? It will just discover, they were all lit. And it costs something because you have to do 2 geometry classes for every light. Well, and I was going to say something about this too, wasn't I? Well, let's scales or well, I think the main point is to see that the performance is here by doubling the bandwidth is something as here where it's closer to twice. However, in this, when we're getting here, we're starting to get into the territory where I think I came to the rendering time of the model, to the G buffers here. And that's starting to dominate the cost for these milliseconds here. So it, so it will be less and less actually due to the shading. More is just a geometry course. So probably something. Oh, TikTok.
No, you didn't.
I knew that all along. But I think we've basically covered it. And there's this whole confusion about what is actually deferred lighting, deferred shading. And there's no one really out there defining the terms. I even went as far as I asked someone at a forum who had written about this heatedly with strong opinions. And he referenced me to a presentation by some people who start out by defining, laying down the law, this is deferred shading, this is deferred lighting, and then continues throughout the presentation to incorrectly use the word deferred lighting. So it's like, whatever. But deferred lighting, it's really just an optimization. You're just reorganizing the shading equation. You can do some things later. Instead of multiplying the color on material color for every light, it's the same color after all, for the same sun. You can do it last, after you do all the lights. Makes sense? So it's not really much to it, just reorganize the different things. And you can do that by doing more than weak passes. And I think the only difference between deferred lighting and light free pass is that you restrict the model even further. I'm certain, a bit uncertain there.
Yeah.
Basically, you say you can only have monochromatic spectrum or something like that. So it's not all the same. I think the only reason these are actually popular is because that they fit in the same space. They fit into render buffers on consoles.
Yeah,
This is why they're popular. And since people can kind of relate to the deferred shading party on the consoles, all the resources were booked by how the console fills up and you don't get any more memory for your rendering. And you could in the beginning, but it's all text. It's all text there. Right. And then I have this interesting slide with the only thing that I feel I should mention, and that is when you do deferred and tile deferred you're probably best off to use standard deferred for very small lights with just point sprites rather than any of this complex ones, because it's going to affect the few samples. And tiling them, if the tile is bigger than the lights, then obviously you're going to do it redundant. But it's only really effective when they're a certain size. So, I mean, 1,000 tile lights is not going to add up to that. Better off just chucking them in the graphics card. Well, these are things I haven't experimented with. But then you're just doing one list.
Yeah.
It's really in up there with just shading.
Well, yeah. It's back in G460. So.
What was it called?
Like index deferred.
Oh yeah. I don't think I did. I did read it. I'm not sure if I sort of lost it along the way. Yeah, no. Did you write it? Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it was a long time.
It's got all these limitations with packing it into bits and behavior. That's good. I like it. I can't remember if it was an inspiration or if I read it after doing my no, that's it. And, no, we're done. I'm done.
That's good.
And yeah, I have the address, I have the demo. Lying around? Yeah, Congeal source code. No queue. No performance. No, it's not so quick, but it's more for readability.
Yeah.
So the real disclaimers is not the same code as used for the performance measures in the papers. It's just way smaller.
Did you go through how you generated the digital color?